Today, we're diving into Yuval Noah Harari's Sapiens, a book that honestly changes the way you see pretty much everything. At its core, there's just one simple but massive idea that explains how our species went from being just another ape in the crowd to, well, the rulers of the entire planet.
So the entire book really boils down to this one huge question. If you could rewind the clock 70,000 years, you'd find us, Homo sapiens, and we were nothing special, just another animal, trying not to get eaten, sharing the planet with a bunch of other human species. We were totally insignificant. So what on earth happened? What was the secret sauce that took us from the middle of the food chain straight to the very top?
Because the story of Sapiens isn't just a slow, gradual climb, it's this incredible, almost unbelievable transformation that happened in what is, evolutionarily speaking, the blink of an eye.
I mean, just look at the contrast here. We went from being just another animal worried about where our next meal was coming from to the absolute masters of the planet. From one of many human species to the only human species left. From survival to building these vast, complex civilizations. How do you even begin to explain a leap that massive?
Well, Harari's answer is that it wasn't just our clever hands or our big brains. Sure, those helped. But our real advantage was something way more unique, something that no other creature on Earth has. You could call it our collective superpower.
And here it is. This is the big one, the central idea of the whole book. Our secret weapon wasn't a physical tool. It was all in our heads. It was our amazing, one-of-a-kind ability to imagine things that aren't real and then get millions of other people to believe in those same stories.
So what is a shared fiction? Think about it this way. It's any idea that doesn't physically exist in the world, like a tree or a river, but only exists in our collective imagination. A chimp can't really cooperate with more than about 150 other chimps. After that, it's just chaos. But us, we can get billions of total strangers to work together, all because we believe in the same stories.
Now, this might sound a little abstract, but I promise you, you deal with these incredibly powerful stories literally every single day. Let's take a look at maybe the most powerful story ever told.
Okay, just grab a dollar bill out of your wallet. What is it really? It's just a piece of paper with some ink on it. It has no real value. So why can you trade it for a coffee or your rent or a new car? It's because we all believe in the story printed on it. The story that a government or a bank promises it's worth something. The value isn't in the paper itself. It's in the shared trust of millions and millions of strangers. That's a shared fiction running the world.
And once you see it everywhere. It goes so much deeper than just money. What is a nation? It's not the land itself, it's a shared story about identity and belonging. What's a company like Apple or Google? It's just a legal story, an idea that exists only on paper and in our minds. Laws, religions, even the concept of human rights. These are all powerful, imagined realities that we've all agreed to live by. They literally build the framework of our entire civilization.
So Harari takes this idea and uses it to frame our entire history, breaking it down into 3 huge revolutions. Each one was a moment where our storytelling superpower basically leveled up and changed the game forever. These are the 3 big turning points. First, the cognitive revolution, which is when we first got this storytelling ability. Then came the agricultural revolution, where we used those stories to build brand new kinds of societies. And finally, the scientific revolution, which gave us a totally new kind of story to believe in. The story of progress.
So around 70,000 years ago, something clicked inside our brains. Our language evolved beyond just, hey, watch out for that lion. We started being able to talk about things that weren't there. We could gossip, create myths, invent gods and spirits. This was the birth of fiction, and it was the key that unlocked cooperation on a scale no one had ever seen before.
Then, about 12,000 years ago, we made this radical switch to farming. It let us settle down, grow way more food, and support huge populations. This gave rise to villages, then cities, then kingdoms and empires. But it also required bigger and better stories. Stories about who owned which piece of land, stories about which gods to pray to for a good harvest, stories about why the king gets to be in charge.
And finally, just 500 years ago, which is practically yesterday in the grand scheme of things, we began to tell a new story. The scientific revolution was founded on a really radical idea. Admitting that we don't know everything. By accepting our own ignorance, we gave ourselves permission to question old beliefs, to observe, to experiment. And that mindset, it's what unleashed the insane technological and social changes that have completely defined the world we live in today.
Which brings us to a really cool kind of meta point. Sapiens isn't just a book about how powerful stories are. The book itself is a perfect example of that power in action.
Harari himself has said, that he didn't really discover any of the facts in this book. He's not out there digging up fossils. His genius was taking all this information that was already out there, from biology, archaeology, history, and weaving it all together into one single epic story about us. He told our own story back to us in a completely new and compelling way. So, after this whole incredible journey through 70,000 years of history, what's the point? Where does all of this leave us right here, right now? This is the big takeaway. The most mind-blowing realization from all of this is that the reality you and I live in isn't just made of physical stuff. It's built on layers and layers of these fictions. Our entire global economy, our political systems, our laws, it's all resting on a foundation of stories we've agreed to believe. And you know what's so powerful about that? Since they are just stories, they can be changed.
And that leaves us with one last massive question to chew on. The stories of gods and kings and nations got us to where we are today. But what comes next? As we face these giant global challenges like AI and climate change, what new stories are we going to have to invent to get us through them? The next great chapter of the human story hasn't been written yet, and it's going to be defined, like always, by the stories we choose to believe in.